Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Reefs Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
And welcome back to the Tracer Rounds show on Military Broadcast Radio. And I'm Terry, your host. And with me tonight, I have Graham Paul Roberts. Welcome.
Hi. Good evening.
So there's so much to unpack here with Graham. He likes Paul, so we might transition back and forth. But Paul served 2 decades in the British Army and in the Welsh Guards, deploying to Northern Ireland, I can't talk, Kosovo, and Afghanistan, and he became an instructor with the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. After leaving the Army in 2013, he worked as a security contractor in Iraq and Syria, mentoring local forces and fight against ISIS. And I don't know how to say the other group, Al-Nusra. Okay. Thank you, because I couldn't pronounce it. But so welcome. I'm so excited to have you. So you are joining us, and it's very late at night or early morning. It depends on how you look at it. And I appreciate you staying up with us.
It's okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, so you are also an author. So we want to talk a little bit about first your childhood that kind of is portrayed in the book. You kind of talk about how everything started off for you. So do you mind kind of walking us through childhood for you? And you're from Wales.
Yes, Wales in the UK. Yeah.
In the UK, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was born 2nd of August 1976. 6 weeks premature, only £2 born.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, when I was born, the doctors pretty much wrote me off. I had double hernia. I had to go to Alderhay Hospital, which is in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Where I spent some weeks in an incubator. My dad told me years later that he was asked by the doctor during the operation, the birth, who do you want to survive, your wife or your son? Obviously, he chose, his wife. And, looking back, I can understand that. They were told that I'd have learning disabilities, which does resonate, and the left side of my body would grow smaller, and I wouldn't live past my 16th birthday. So earlier on, my childhood was, you could say, I was doomed in a way. When I was in school, I did find it difficult to retain information.
Yeah.
And when I got to my teens, I then started to question, oh no, I think, the doctor's potentially right here. So I did start to panic. Lived beyond my 16th birthday, however, I did struggle deeply in school.
Yeah.
I was quite small for my age. We weren't rich by any means, we were quite poor, so the clothing I would wear would reflect that.
Yeah.
So as a result, I was bullied quite heavily, to the point of leaving school later, hiding underneath the stairs, so no one seeing me. And then I would go home late.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But although I had really poor grades leaving school, I managed to secure myself a place as a vehicle engineer training in the college, which I passed. And that was my first taste of success. And I think I was 18 at the time. So I thought, okay, so my life's not that written off. So then decided to join the army. So 1995 came, I joined the Welsh Guards. I mean, for the listeners in America, the Welsh Guards are those with big furry hats aside Buckingham Palace and the red tunics. So I enjoyed it for a bit. Got quite bored, standing there for 2 hours, not moving. 4
That's
hours
hard,
off.
isn't it?
Yeah, in the summer you do 24 hours on duty, and then you'll have 24 hours off, and that will repeat over the summer, what we call silly season.
Silly season.
Yeah, it's quite intense, because when you're not on guard duty, you're cleaning your kit, you're brushing and grooming your bare skin with shampoo and conditioner, for the record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then when you finish, you're then training for exercise or conflict. And we went to America, actually, in 1999. We went to Fort Lewis.
Okay.
By God, it was cold. We went in January. I should know better. But
that's cold month, yes.
Yeah. Well, I geographically weren't quite sure where Washington State was. And I thought it wouldn't be cold. Oh, I was wrong.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest, even in the summer, can be cold.
Yeah, very, very pretty.
Yes.
Very pretty. So I really enjoyed that. Went back to London again. Well, we call it public duties when you're standing in St James's Palace, Tower of London, Windsor Castle, and Buckingham Palace. Did that for a bit, and then we deployed to Northern Ireland, which was my first operational tour.
Yeah.
Very apprehensive, because in the UK at that time, Northern Ireland was on the news all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the week before we deployed, a soldier from the Royal Artillery was killed.
Oh,
so
goodness.
That then made me realise, oh crap, this is actually not just going to walk on the streets of Northern Ireland. You're actually putting yourself in line of fire with the IRA. My first negative exposure, I suppose, to hatred was a young girl. She must have been between 10 and 12. She walked over to me about 2 foot from my face and spat in my face.
Oh my goodness.
And we were trained not to retaliate, which we didn't. I didn't.
Yeah.
But that then realised, oh, okay, this is what it's like in Northern Ireland. Everyone who looks at you hates you. And I thought it was just the IRA. Actually, it turned out no. It's quite a large proportion of the area didn't like you.
Wow.
So we went back to London, more public duties. We then moved to, not moved as in the unit moved, but we had a big exercise in Canada.
Okay.
In what we call Medicine Hat, in Edmonton. By there is quite contrast to Washington State, is quite warm, quite sandy. Yeah, I moved back to the UK and I got selected for promotion. So the first line of promotion for us, being the infantry in the UK, is a Lance Corporal. So I went to a place called Pirbright, where the Household Division and the Parachute Regiment, where they come together, do training. It's quite intense. You're forced to stay awake for nights. The physical fitness is intense. The skills you learn, the knowledge you learn.
Yeah.
But having said that, you come out the other side promoted and a better soldier and a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you're going to say something, Terry.
So how long is there a requirement for service at all?
No, I mean,
No.
back in the 60s, we had a thing called national service.
Yeah.
That finished. But when you join the army, you have to do 4 years.
4 years.
So you cannot leave until you do 4 years. And then when you want to leave, you have to give 12 months notice.
12 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry, but so do the Queen's family have to serve? Do they have a requirement to serve?
they don't.
They don't.
But
Okay.
some do. Like, for example, Harry.
Yeah.
He was in the House of Cavalry. King Charles, he didn't really serve, but he did a lot of affiliation with the Parachute Regiment. Yeah. Yeah.
And so do you does the Welsh Guard or the British Army, do they have a reserve force too, or is it all active duty?
No, we have a thing called, it used to be called a territorial army, but it's now called reserves.
Okay.
And they can be called up to active duty, or they can volunteer to go on active duty. They work one night of the week and I think 2 weekends of the month. But the regular army, which I was part of, it's every day.
Yeah.
That's it. You're in it. And when you get told you're going to Afghanistan, as an example, you can't say, "Nah, I'm sorry, I'm not going."
Right.
You get
Say, never
told-
mind, I don't really want to.
Yeah, you get told you're going.
So on your deployments, do you have a certain length of the deployment, or does it just depend on the mission set?
No, it's usually 6 months.
6
So
months.
it's not too bad actually. And then in that 6 months, you have 2 weeks R&R.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite good.
Yeah. So you joined the army, you got promoted, you're learning to be a leader, and then you were deployed. And then what's next?
So I went back to Northern Ireland, but this time as a commander. So as a team
Nice.
commander. This time we were spending 2 weeks patrolling, 2 weeks in a tower looking at areas of interest. Did that, then came back to the UK, and then I went on another promotion course. So the first promotion course I did, it qualified me to look after 4 soldiers. The next promotion course I did qualified me to look after 8 soldiers. So I was a section commander. And to qualify as a section commander in the infantry, you have to do a course called the Section Commander's Battle Course. It's in South Wales and Brecon. And it's got a reputation here for being really arduous training.
Yeah.
But enjoyable. This time you learn how to teach lessons. Whereas being a Lance Corporal is all about how to, dish out ammunition, and how to make a sentry list, etc., and how to command a fire team. But the section commander, you're not always taught how to command in battle. You're actually taught how to teach as well. So how to teach a certain weapon system, etc. So I did that, absolutely loved it, and then I went back to my unit, and they got selected to go to ATR Pirbright to teach recruits. So I spent 2 years there teaching the next generation of guardsmen.
So is that like our drill sergeants, or do you know what our drill sergeants are, or is that a different level of instructor for training troops?
You could say in a way. So I would be in charge of training a section of 12 soldiers directly, but indirectly I've been in charge of teaching 48 soldiers, and there'll be 4 section commanders in a platoon. I was one of them.
Okay.
So I did that for 2 years. Went back to the battalion, got promoted to sergeant, and I went back down to South Wales. This time doing the platoon sergeant's battle course. The emphasis is still the same. It's how you command soldiers in the field. But this time, instead of teaching weapon systems, I was taught how to design live firing ranges. And then from there, I went back to the battalion. And then we went on a patrol competition in a place called Salisbury Plain. It's a huge training area. Won.
You won it?
I won it.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I was quite happy.
Definitely.
And then we got deployed to Kosovo. So I really enjoyed Kosovo.
What year was that?
That was in 2006.
2006.
So our job there was static covert surveillance. So we were looking for people who were identified for war crimes. So a lot of the jobs we were doing it was all covert. So some of the jobs was wearing civilian clothing. But it's all centralized around going into OPs and confirming if that person was at that location. Then the Swedish army who was with us, they'd go in and arrest that person.
Okay. So how long did you were there for 6 months doing that, or did your mission set change while you were in Kosovo?
No, I stayed there for the duration, came back, and I got selected for Sandhurst, which is the UK's version of West Point.
Oh, wow.
So passed the selection for that. I was absolutely, as we say here, over the moon.
Yes, absolutely.
Got promoted to colour sergeant. Absolutely loved my time in Sandhurst. Finished that and then got back to my unit, and I then took up the post as the company quartermaster sergeant, which is a person in charge of the logistics for the company.
Okay.
I didn't like it.
You're like, this is just not where I wanted to be right now.
No. I wanted to be a soldier.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I had responsibility. We then went to Kenya on exercise. And this is where things started to go a bit wrong for me. So my early childhood, I was facing barriers and obstacles, and I was facing it again. So there was an incident where we were going from live firing training to blank firing training. And in the British Army, there is a heap load of checks you need to do. And we had casualties, and as the company were getting ready to go on blank firing, as I was checking the kit, I found a grenade and a belt of 5.56 link for the LMG Mini-Me. So I was put in a bit of a position. I asked myself a question. If I was to say this to the quartermaster, my friend, who was the company sergeant major, would be in a lot of trouble, and the company's name would be kind of tarnished. So I made the silly decision to ask one of my junior soldiers to take this ammunition, go into the desert and bury it, which came back and bit me.
Yeah.
So I knew I could. There was my officer commanding, the company commander of the company was talking to the BATUS, of the Kenya safety staff. And I just knew in my gut they were discussing that they found ammunition. So I did a moral right thing. I went over and I said, I think I know what this conversation is about. And I admitted. I said, I instructed one of the soldiers to do, getting rid of the ammunition.
Yeah.
I got busted for that. I got reduced in rank to sergeant. Yeah, I was devastated.
Yeah, for sure. But you did the right thing, and that's what matters, here. And I know that was upsetting, but just doing the right thing and taking ownership of, whatever's going on, I think that says all about your character.
Yeah. Like the commanding officer at the time, he said to me, look, you clearly had a moment of madness, and I can understand the morals behind it. So he said to me, I have to be seen to be punishing you because what you did was wrong. So obviously I got reduced.
Yeah.
But I actually quite enjoyed it in a way, because I was commanding men as a platoon sergeant again. So I was back on the ground. So the command officer went, a new commanding officer came in. He promoted me back up to colour sergeant, back to CQMS again. And then we deployed to Afghanistan. Again, I was really enjoying it. Absolutely was. My volunteers on the ground with the blokes. We had one incident in our PB. So we were in Nari Siraj East, in a place in a compound called PB5. And I asked one of the young guardsmen to go and burn the poo. Because where we were in the green zone, we had to get rid of all our waste ourselves. He picked up a can of petrol instead of diesel. And he opened it next to an already lit pile of waste.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it blew up. He gained quite a lot of injuries. The American MERT team, they came with their helicopter, the Chinook, and they extracted him back to Bastion, where he got treated and then got sent back to the UK.
Yeah.
I felt guilty in a way, but it wasn't my mistake. I didn't give him the wrong order.
Yeah.
He just decided to go his own way and do things. That's the thing, when you're commanding soldiers, you do have guilt when they do something silly, although it's nothing to do with you.
Right.
Because they're still one of your subordinates, and you still, you do care about the soldiers.
Absolutely.
So we left Afghanistan, went to Cyprus for 2 days for a decompression period. So the idea of this is, if you are, dare I say, angry, you go to Cyprus, you get filled full of booze, get drunk, and then you go home slightly not so angry.
They hope it helps anyway.
Yeah, it does in a way. And then it went back to being the boring CQMS again. And that was me. I wanted something. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave and go on to what we call in the UK the circuit, which is being a close protection operator in the Middle East.
Oh, wow.
So I was advised not to leave the army, by quite a few people. But once that idea's in my head, I go there. So I did a course in Hereford, learned how to be a CP operator, passed with distinction, and then I got a job straight away in Iraq with the company my friend was working in. So we were centralized around Basra in South Iraq.
Yeah.
Most of the blokes on the job are all British or South African. We had a good laugh. The gym, the food was okay. Initially, I was enjoying it, but I was spending hours in the B6, 8 hours at a time. I thought, oh Christ, I'm better than this. This is not what I thought CP is going to be. I thought it's going to be, being a bodyguard to someone important in Iraq. But no, I was sat in the B6. So I did that for a couple of years. I actually did get promoted to project manager. So I was in charge of the project, looking after essentially 100 people and up to 30 vehicles. I really enjoyed that. But again, I just wasn't getting what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I heard this company, everyone was talking about this company. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try and see if I can get an email with this company. So I got an email and I sent an email to them. I never thought I'd get the job.
Yeah.
And then I did an email back. And that email followed by a phone call by the person who would be my boss in the next place. And on the phone call, he informed me that the job was in Syria. And at that time, so I'm talking 2015, at the time Syria was on every news network, around the world, definitely in the UK. So I was very apprehensive, nervous, excited, all in one.
Right.
But when he said to me the pay, and the pay was £18,600 a month, I then forgot all about the worries. I thought, wow, that's a very good pay amount. So I think dollars-wise, I think it's $20,000 a month, I think.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is good pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I accepted the job, and I then handed in my notice to my manager in Iraq whilst I was on leave. And then I went to London for the briefings, the training. And when it became real for me was when I pressed the buzzer of a door and a voice came through, who is it? And I said my name. And I went upstairs and I went into the office. There's maps on the wall of Syria. There's military plaques on the wall. I thought, my God, this is serious. This is real good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when we got told we were going to be building a special battalion in and around the place called Salamir, which is not far from Homs. So essentially between Homs and Hama. And the special battalion were there to help protect the Ismaili community against ISIS, which they call Daesh, and Al-Nusra. The rotation was 6 weeks on, 6 weeks at home, so it was absolutely perfect. The money was great, the rotation was great, it was brilliant. I thought, yes, finally, I can really feel at ease.
Yeah.
And the blokes I was working with were all of the same caliber, all in the same language, so it was really, really good. I went home, got training, because we got told we have to do physical training just to, up ourselves.
Right.
And the journey from the house to Heathrow Airport, I remember having butterflies in my stomach, kind of nervous, and on the same hand, what have I got myself into?
Right.
But we flew into Beirut, and I thought Beirut was going to be this bombed out place.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it wasn't. It was bustling. There's Ferrari garages, there's Range Rovers everywhere.
Oh, wow.
People dressed, as they are in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
The bars are buzzing. It was absolutely a vibrant city.
I wouldn't have thought that either.
No, well, I didn't. I was very surprised, actually. Pleasantly surprised. And the people are so polite. And what was really nice to see was Muslim and Christian people were living and working together. And what's strange, we were staying in the Hilton Hotel, and I was looking out my window, and there's a church and a mosque next to each other. And that, to me, that sends a message.
Yeah, it does.
If they can live together.
Right.
So The morning, I didn't really sleep the night before we crossed the border. I was quite nervous. I was watching YouTube about the NDF, the National Defence Force. The morning, woke up, we had breakfast. None of us really spoke because we were all secretly very nervous, but we didn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
And then the fixer came in with a taxi. We all got into the 2 taxis. We travelled through Beirut, and when we got to the outskirts of Beirut, that's when it was the Beirut I imagined. Bombed out buildings, poor kind of areas.
Yeah.
Not as flush as the central Beirut. And then we got to the border, and my butterflies were literally flapping like buggery in my belly.
Right.
We had to pay the commander to let us through.
Oh, wow.
He wouldn't accept that. So the fixer had to tell our Syrian boss, who we called the doctor, to let us in.
Yeah.
So we got in, our kit was checked, and they seen our radios, and they were very concerned why we had radios. And I think they actually took our GPSs off us.
Uh-oh. Need those.
Yeah. So we got the other side of the checkpoint, and then there was 2 pickups waiting for us with NDF drivers. And this is the first time I actually met the NDF soldiers. They're absolutely, as we say in UK, brilliant blokes. Really were nice, so polite. Because, prior to this, everyone thought, and I thought, Syria was this place where it's suppressed and everyone's very kind of down. But it was complete opposite. There was posters of Assad everywhere. Everyone was very happy and jolly. There was music. I was like, oh my God, this place is brilliant. But as we were driving from the border to Damascus, we were passing old Soviet-style vehicles.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, okay, yeah. Okay, this is like what I thought, actually. We got to Damascus. Again, it's quite nice. Greenery, statues, there's flags, people dressed, nice clothing, westernized clothing. We then had a fuel break there and a bit of a break. And then we went north then to Salamia. But as we were leaving Damascus towards Salamia, checkpoints were more obvious. People were more dressed in dish dashes. It was then, okay, this is what I was expecting, actually.
Yeah.
We got to Salamia, and Salamia is a big town. It's a big town. On the side of the road, there was lamb hanging up with no skin on them. People smoking around them. It's not very clean.
Yeah.
It was like it's stuck in the 80s, dare I say it. But having said that, the people were very nice. So we pulled into a street which had bollards on either end, and this street belonged to the doctor, our in-country boss. We were welcomed with open arms. We were given accommodation, very, very basic, very basic. I took with me a Bob the Builder quilt cover.
I love that.
And I had my Welsh towel, Welsh dragon. We didn't have a shower. We had a tap, which was just cold water. Now, bear in mind, we went there in October, and Syria in the winter is blimmin' well cold.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my goodness.
So we had to do what we call a bird bath for it. We made our own little gym. Well, we were watching Insanity, if I'm allowed to reference that. And then we would have briefings, we would meet the commanders, meet the soldiers. We then go and do a recce of the training areas we would use. So we labelled the training areas TA1 and TA2, so training area 1, training area 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who interviewed me in London, he was our in-country boss, so he was our British boss. And this guy's a really good leader. He's ex-parachute regiment officer, a fantastic bloke. He was giving us int briefs about the enemy, for example, al-Nusra and ISIS.
Yeah.
We went to meet the lads, so I met my section, and I then rewound my clock, and I was back 10 years ago. I was commanding my own blokes. I was loving it. I was back on that patrol competition where I won. I thought, this is it. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. So I was passing on all my experience to them. In fact, they gave me a bit of a nickname called Mr. Turbo because I was quite fast at running. Yeah, which stuck with me to the end.
Oh, wow.
So we were, like I said, we were living in a small townhouse in Salamir, but the training areas were outside Salamir in an old Syrian army training area. Mm-hmm. So we went to view the training areas, and the first time I went there, it was kind of surreal. There was tank dugouts, and there's old T-54, 55s there. There's one T-80. There was a checkpoint to the camp, which in the UK we call the guard room, which was manned by the Syrian army. So the Syrian army are not the National Defence Force. So the National Defence Force, you could say, is a volunteer force.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That was basically made up of young men and young women from the local area. So the Syrian army were kind of a bit wary of us. Why these British here? But they got to understand that we were actually quite nice, and we ended up having some banter with them, which means we had a bit of laugh with them.
Right.
The training areas themselves, they were mixed between hilly outcrops, rocky, some of the olive trees, like I say, tank dugouts, at random places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is obviously from the previous war, and we use them for make up enemy positions when we do section attacks. The first proper training encounter I had with the blokes was I did the fitness test for them.
Mm-hmm.
And in the British Army, you have to run 1.5 miles in 10.5 minutes.
That's pretty quick.
The quickest man came in at 20 minutes, and the slowest man came in at 41 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
So I thought, oh my Christ, we've got a battle on our hand here. So we increased the fitness to intense fitness, which worked. They got fitter and faster.
That's good.
So we were teaching them the skills that we were using in the British Army. So the doctrine we would use, we were actually passing that knowledge on to them.
Yeah.
So the first few months was, teaching basic infantry skills, ambushes, section attacks, patrolling, etc. It wasn't really obvious at first, but the theme of the training changed. Initially, we were teaching generic skills, that would suit any scenario. But we then moved to teaching skills that was designed for specific enemy at specific points. Right. Like, we would be teaching soldiers how to attack a trench system, which was modelled on the al-Nusra trench system.
Mhm.
So we weren't just teaching infantry skills, for the sake of it, so to speak. We were now actually teaching the soldiers how to attack their enemy and the best way to do it.
Yeah, that's
So,
good. I mean, that's what
yes,
they needed.
that was the first shift. We were gaining a lot of attention from a lot of the high-ranking officers in the NDF. Now, a lot of the high-ranking officers in the NDF are ex-Syrian army
Okay.
from the 80s and 90s. They had a massive interest in what we were teaching. And dare I say this, there was a lack of trust initially. But then once they got to know us personally, they then realised actually that they're decent, trustworthy people.
Right.
Yeah, so from there we then went to view where their defence positions were, and this is where the change happened. So we weren't just teaching them how to fight their enemy, we were actually helping them defend themselves as well.
Okay.
And the word got out that there was British guys there helping. So our Russia were finding this, their sources for intelligence were, it's the same as every other indigenous country. They'll be paying people for information.
Right. Yeah.
And of course they would find out British are here. So when we were going out to these positions, of course we were shot at all the time.
Yeah, that's not so fun.
Yeah, so, we went there to teach. We then realised that the tempo was changing, so we're then teaching them how to attack their enemy in a tailored way.
Yeah.
But then we were getting shot at. That's when it changed, psychologically, I suppose.
Right.
It's every soldier wants to be in combat. But when you're in combat, when you haven't got a line of artillery or an airstrike to help you, it's a different feeling.
Right. When there's not a lot of resourcing behind you. Yes,
No.
for sure.
It was a completely top secret mission. No one knew about it in the UK. Dare I say, no one in the world knew about it. And if we were to get killed, there was no one there. There was no repatriation with a ceremony.
Right.
There was like, let's try and get him back. Like I said, there's no, okay, there's hospital in Salamir. We had an evacuation plan, which is very robust, I have to say. But we didn't have, the Air Force. We didn't have, tanks to support us, etc.
Right. Yeah, you were kind of left to your own devices, and those that you were supporting, hopefully they'd support you too, but that's a very difficult position for sure.
Having said that, we then did have our own tanks. So on each and every position we had a tank. So we then started to mentor. So I had a young platoon commander called Raheem, and my job was to teach him how to be a platoon commander because of my Sandhurst experience.
Right.
So I'll teach him how to do the attack, how to command, etc. And then we went to do a recce, just me, 3 Syrians and 2 other British operators to see where the enemy was approaching from. Because these positions were getting attacked every night, and I wanted to determine where they were coming from.
Right, yeah.
And as I'm moving through the olive groves, I see a bombed out building in front of me, 15 meters away. As I looked, I initially didn't believe it. I seen a body leaning through the wall, not through the wall, but around the wall.
Yeah.
I thought, Christ, have I just seen something? No. So I literally had an out-of-body experience. I thought, shit, was that the enemy? I kept looking, and then he popped his head over again, and this time he raised his weapon. I thought, shit. I was quicker. And then it turned out to one hell of a firefight. So we extracted back to our ERVs and the emergency rendezvous point.
Right.
Dusted ourselves off, got in the vehicle, and went back. And that was the first time I thought, okay, this is actually proper real now. And that night, if I can say this, I had bad diarrhea. And that is the adrenaline leaving you.
Wow.
A few days later, we went down a re-entrant, or I went down myself actually, to have a look if I could put mines down there in barbed wire.
Mm-hmm.
And Anusha see me, and they were shooting at me. So I was pinned down. I could not move. I could feel the crack with the weapon, the other bullets going over me.
Oh my goodness.
But behind me, I had my fire support team. They were firing as well. So I was literally stuck. I was pinned down by my own fire and the enemy's fire.
Oh, wow.
So I had to make a decision. I had to go back up re-entrant and wave my hand, my left hand, and hope someone will see me. Thankfully, one of the soldiers see me and said, "Stop firing, Mr. Robo's coming." So I got back up, and then we extracted. A few days later, we went back to the olive grove because we then started to build more defences. And I was stood up, telling my soldiers what the plan was. And then I felt this almighty sting on my right hand, and my weapon literally got ripped from my hand.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's important to mention, actually, the firing point is 1,000 metres away.
Wow.
So I was extremely lucky.
Definitely.
A friend of mine dived on me, threw me to the floor, and put his hand up my body armour, just checking me for blood. There was nothing. And our boss, jokingly, to change the atmospherics, he goes, "Why did you just throw your weapon on the floor?" But that worked. I went, "Okay, fair enough." And that was it. I went on leave, got to Beirut, and Beirut became a decompression place.
Yeah.
Where we used to get drunk quite a bit. Got back into rotation, went back to the same olive grove, and again we were shot at. This time it was different. When you're shot at, if there's a crack in the thump, the round is about 4-6 foot above you. When you hear the whistle, it's about 2 foot away from you.
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was tucked, lying down behind an olive tree, and the olive tree with the stem is no thicker than my lower leg. I was in no cover, and the guy to the right of me, his hand got shot.
Oh no.
So me and my friend, as we were getting shot at, there's rounds, picking up dust. We had to give him first aid. He then got extracted. Off he went. A friend of mine with artillery, he managed to smash the chicken factory. And I thought, yes, I can move now. But as I got up and bloody moved, the ground again started getting shot at. So how the hell I'm here, God only knows.
Right.
So
Goodness.
got to cover. Sorry. And then a few days later, we went to attack, mentoring the trench system. So I was part of the force section, mentoring them, and we came under fire from our Nusra, and the guy to the left of me, his head just went down. I thought, what's happened to him? So I there's nothing. I thought, oh, crap. So I crawled over to him, checked him, and there's just a tiny hole above his collarbone. There's no blood. I thought, shit, he's been shot. But he was unresponsive. I thought, oh my God, he's been killed. So I picked him up and I ran, got into the ERV, which there was one of our vehicles there. They checked him in the vehicle and off he went to the hospital.
Yeah.
So that attack didn't go in. We didn't know where the enemy was, and it's too much of a risk. So another time we decided to stay in Overwatch, and we taught a young guy called Mohammed how to deal with IEDs, not defuse them, but just how to find them and how to mark them and move around them.
Right.
He was very blasé in his attitude. He always thought I knew better, and etc.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a set of binos, watching him go up a track, and boom, there it was, just a puff of smoke, dust in the air. So we went down to survey, and there's nothing left. Pink mist. He literally just disappeared.
Oh no.
The blokes are running around like hellish chickens. I was like, calm down, calm down. So we then moved out the way, and then half an hour, there's a crack through the air, and one of the lads who climbed up the same ladder I was climbing up before, got hit with a 12.7 disc around it, which literally cut him in half.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the West, we called it. That was al-Nusra. And we were also fighting ISIS. So we went to a place called Point 6, 7, and 8, which was the ISIS front line for Salamiyah. Again, we were mentoring. And me and the boss, we got pinned down by ISIS behind a little pile of rocks. The fire support opened up. We then extracted, and then we got out of there. We secured 6, 7, and 8. You know, ISIS had retreated, but they left a surprise for us, a burning body. One of the soldiers, it was on flames. We went back there a few days later, and it was just a charred body. I had that much hatred in me. I actually squashed his head on my foot, which that stayed with me for years.
That was very difficult to witness.
I was full of anger, but we then moved to where their towns were and the villages, and there was cages there where they had bodies. You know, there was tunnels and rooms in the ground. I remember seeing a jar of Nutella, actually. The strangest things that stays with you.
Right.
And then it was job done. It was home time. That was it. The Syria days are done.
Right. So from that, you've written a book, Echoes in Silence.
Yeah.
And so tell me the reason that you wrote the book. I know that writing is cathartic, and then writing helps to tell your story and helps to tell people where you came from and how you dealt with things. So what was your goal in this book?
Okay. What I'm going to say now is very important. I've had quite a bit of therapy, medication, etc. But the best thing I've ever done is write my experiences down.
Yeah.
I've taken it from my soul and I've put it into a book. I've emotionally detached myself from my traumatic experiences by putting in a book. Yeah. So the reason why I wrote the book was I came home and I thought it was all okay. But I remember being on my knees doing gardening, I actually broke down. I'm not quite sure why, I broke down. And that night, that's when I started having memories and nightmares of Syria. All the stuff I've done, seen, smelt.
Right.
Then I turned to drink. I then turned to painkillers to help me sleep. But amongst all this, there was a shining light. I met my wife, Amy. We married. So that at that time was a nice change of mental feeling. But then it came back again, and this time it came back worse. I started seeing a face in every room I was in, and the face was a long, whitish, creamish face, sunken in eyes with sharp teeth. When I was at my lowest point, it used to laugh at me.
Oh, wow.
When I was depressed, it used to scream at me. I couldn't take it anymore, so I planned my own death. I planned to drink whiskey and hang myself in the woods opposite the hospital where I was born.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I just could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. I really couldn't.
Yeah.
My wife then gave birth to our daughter, Theodora.
Oh.
She's a gorgeous human, and I've told her this. She is my savior. Absolutely. But during labour, my wife had a really traumatic time. You know, the birth was quite difficult. There was a lot of blood, and that took me back. You know, that
Oh,
really
yeah.
set me sideways again. So I reached out to a company called Veterans Wales, and I started having treatment and therapy. It was brilliant, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So I then got passed over to a clinical psychologist who put me on medication. And the reason why he put me on medication was because I was looking for my son in a wood line, and I seen that guy I shot, and I froze, and I thought it was real. I thought he was actually there. So I told this to the doctor, and he said, your mind plays, you know, tricks with you. So he put me on antipsychotic medication called sertraline. That the meaning for that was because it would stop me seeing all these vivid things.
Yeah.
And they put me on antidepressants as well. Sorry, could type in antipsychotic, sertraline, antidepressants. My mistake. It worked. The face started to disappear. And I remember seeing the face a few weeks ago, actually. And I said to him, can I swear? Is that okay? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, fuck off. And it closed his mouth like that. And it went. But it worked. I'm here. And I wanted to put all my experiences and the skills and tools I have down into a book. And you know, I suppose I want people to know as well. I mean, in the UK, people think veterans can only do certain amount of work, like security, builders, etc.
Right.
I disagree. I teach the most vulnerable people in society now, and I love it. And it's quite funny, really. When I was a child, I got told I was going to have learning disabilities. I now teach young adults with learning disabilities. It's like it's gone round.
It's gone full circle for sure.
Yes, it's gone full circle. So, yes, the book is getting written. It's my life experience, my life story, the trauma I've experienced. And fundamentally, it's about what I was seeing, what it's actually like to be a veteran once you've been in combat.
Right.
And I want to inform how you actually turn yourself around. There's a few skills I learned, and one of the skills I learned is instead of being in that situation, take yourself out of it and view it like you're in the cinema.
Right.
Put yourself 20 meters behind you in that situation and just watch it. And what you're doing there is you're emotionally detaching yourself. And once you've had these memories, you then put them into this imaginary box and you put it where you want. For me, it was on top of a cupboard. And the main thing that worked for me is to have an aim. Every soldier gets given a name, a mission, a task.
Right.
And my task was to be better. My task was to focus on something else, even if something silly like building a log store, studying, writing a book. You have to have something to take you to the new you. And it's worked. Right. Absolutely worked.
And your book comes out October 2026?
Yes, this October.
Yes.
Echoes in the Silence. It'll be a good read. It'll be raw at points, but it will be a very good read.
I've started it and I'm very invested in it, and you tell a very vivid story. I mean, you can picture what's going on by the way you write. You write really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's going to help a lot of people. We talked I know we only have like a minute or two left, but we talked before the show, and you mentioned that veteran suicide over in Wales and the UK is probably as bad as it is here because of things like this battlefield trauma and these PTSDs and other things that go on. And so you're writing to help that, just like we have people doing the same here. And so, I really appreciate what you're doing because you're really telling a story that needs to be told, one, and then two, you're really telling a story of resilience and how you've overcome all the struggles that led up to your service. And then in your service, you've talked about how to re-engage with your civilian self in your life as a civilian outside the military. And that's really tough.
Yeah. I think it doesn't matter what country you're from, every veteran feels the same emotions and trauma.
Yeah.
And I just want society to know, don't write veterans off. They can do anything. They're resilient.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Graham, for coming on the show tonight. I appreciate you staying up late and joining us. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed hearing about your service. And I know that people are going to really resonate with what you're writing in the book. And I know it's going to be a big hit. And so I'm excited for when it comes out because I'll be one of the first ones to buy it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on tonight.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is Tracer Round signing off.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.